The fluorescent lights of the Walmart hummed their eternal song as Rachel Torres pushed her cart down aisle 12. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She'd been on the overnight shift for 3 months, and the solitude was almost comforting. Almost. She was saving for nursing school, living in her grandmother's old farmhouse. The night shift paid extra, and with only 4 employees in the massive store, she could listen to her true crime podcasts and just get the work done. She was restocking laundry detergent when she caught movement in her peripheral vision. Someone was standing at the end of the aisle, cloaked in shadow. Rachel pulled out one earbud. "Store's closed," she called out, her voice echoing. "If you need help finding the exit, it's..." But the figure didn't move, didn't respond. A cold finger of unease traced down her spine. She walked toward the end of the aisle, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. When she rounded the corner, the figure was gone. The main thoroughfare stretched empty in both directions. "Weird," she muttered, popping her earbud back in. Probably just Jerome, her co-worker, doing his rounds. But Jerome was a big guy, and he always wore his bright blue Walmart vest. The person she'd seen was shorter, hunched, and wore something dark that seemed to absorb the light. The next night, Wednesday, she saw him again, this time in the pet supplies section. Rachel was on her knees arranging bags of dog food when she felt it, that prickly sensation of being watched. She stood up quickly and turned. There. Aisle 7. A man stood completely still, staring directly at her. His clothes looked torn, his hair hung in matted strands, and his stare was vacant. Her heart began to hammer against her ribs. "Can I help you?" she called out, her voice shaky. "The store is closed, you need to leave." He didn't move. "I'm calling security," she said, reaching for her phone. A bluff, of course. There was no overnight security. When she looked up again, he was gone. Vanished. She speed-walked to aisle 7. Empty. The nearest exit was 100 feet away. She would have heard the alarm. She found Jerome in electronics. "Hey, did you see anyone walk past here?" Jerome looked up, his face creased with a frown. "Like who?" "It's just us and Denise and Troy." "I thought I saw someone. A customer, maybe." Jerome just chuckled. "Probably just seeing things happens on nights. The mind plays tricks. I once thought I saw a whole family pushing a cart through produce at 3 a.m. Turned out to be some balloons. But Rachel knew what she saw. It wasn't balloons. It was a man, and the way he watched her made her skin crawl. Thursday night, he was there again. Friday night, the same. By Saturday, she'd seen him 4 separate times, always in different aisles, always standing perfectly still, always watching. His sunken eyes seemed to reflect no light at all. By Sunday, Rachel's nerves were shredded. Before her shift, she pulled Jerome aside. "I need you to take this seriously," she said. "There's a man who's been in the store after hours, every single night this week. He's watching me." Jerome's expression shifted from amused to concerned. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. He's tall, really thin, long dark hair, and his clothes are all torn up. And the way he stares, it's not right." Jerome rubbed his jaw. "All right, you see him tonight, you come get me immediately. Don't confront him, we'll handle it together." Rachel felt a wave of relief. "Thank you. I was starting to think I was going crazy." "You're not crazy," Jerome said firmly. "We'll catch this guy." But catching him seemed impossible. At 1:37 a.m., while restocking canned goods, Rachel realized her car keys were gone. They were always clipped to her pocket. Panic flooded through her. She checked everywhere, retracing her steps through health and beauty, pharmacy, hardware. Nothing. As she neared the electronics section, her anxiety peaking, she saw it. A reflection. In the massive wall of dark TV screens, dozens of black mirrors showed her own terrified face. And in those mirrors, standing not 10 feet behind her, was the man. Her blood turned to ice. She spun around, her heart exploding in her chest. The aisle was empty. Completely, impossibly empty. She looked back at the screens. The reflection showed only her now, pale and terrified, standing alone, ending. With trembling hands, she called Jerome. "I saw him," she stammered. "Electronics. He was right behind me. Jerome, I'm scared. Stay there, I'm coming." The 2 minutes it took him to arrive felt like an eternity. He brought Denise, a veteran employee, with him. Rachel pointed to where the man's reflection had been. Jerome and Troy, the 4th employee, did a full sweep of the store. Every aisle, every bathroom, every storage room. They found nothing. Denise led a shaken Rachel to the break room for coffee. When Rachel finally returned to her section at 3 a.m., she found her car keys. They were sitting in the middle of aisle 9, placed precisely on top of a cereal box on a shelf she had personally restocked hours earlier. It was a message, as if someone wanted her to know they could get close to her, take things from her, without her ever knowing. Jerome checked the security cameras for that aisle. The footage showed Rachel restocking the shelf, walking away, and then nothing. No one else appeared. No one touched that shelf. Yet somehow her keys had been returned to a place they couldn't be. Rachel didn't see the man again that night. But as she walked to her car at sunrise, she felt those eyes on her back, watching from the massive glass front of the store. The watcher in aisle 9 had made his message clear. He could reach her whenever he wanted, and there was nothing she could do to stop him. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's stories like these that really make you wonder what's lurking in the shadows of familiar places. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and subscribe for more chills. Stay safe out there. Ever spent a late night in a big box store? The endless aisles, the strange quiet, the feeling that you're not quite alone. For Rachel Torres, an overnight stalker at a Bridgewater Walmart, that feeling became a terrifying reality. This story isn't about a simple shoplifter or a prankster. It's about something far more unsettling. Marcus Webb was the security manager at this Walmart. With 7 years under his belt, he thought he'd seen it all. But a single phone call from Rachel one Monday morning would shatter that belief. Her voice was shaking, filled with a raw fear that cut through his morning haze. "I need you to look at the security footage," she'd pleaded. "Someone's been in the store, someone who shouldn't be there." Marcus arrived by 10 a.m., still groggy but driven by the urgency in her voice. He found Rachel in the security office, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Show me," he said, ready to debunk what he assumed was just late-night paranoia. Rachel directed him to the footage from the electronics section, around 1:30 a.m. The cameras showed Rachel methodically stocking shelves, pushing her cart. It all looked perfectly normal. "There," Rachel said, her finger tapping the screen. "Behind me. Do you see him?" Marcus squinted. At first he saw nothing, just shelves and shadows. But then, as he replayed the clip, a figure materialized from the background. A tall, rail-thin man, partially hidden by a display case, his long, dark hair obscuring his face. He was just standing there, utterly still, watching her. "Jesus," Marcus whispered. The man was about 15 feet from Rachel, his presence completely unknown to her. He didn't move, he didn't twitch. He just stared with an intensity that made the hair on Marcus's arms stand up. After 3 minutes and 42 seconds that felt like an eternity, Rachel turned, and in that split second the man was gone. He didn't walk away. He didn't run. He just vanished between frames. Where did he go? Marcus wondered aloud, scrubbing through the footage frame by frame. There was no explanation. One moment, the figure was there. The next, he was an empty space in the aisle. Rachel's voice was low. "It gets worse. Check camera 12, midnight, pet supplies." Marcus switched the feed. There was Rachel again, this time kneeling to arrange heavy bags of dog food. And there he was again, visible through the gaps in the shelving from the next aisle over. The same man in the same frozen posture, his head tilted, watching her. How was he moving around a locked-down, alarmed superstore without a trace? Every door was secured, every emergency exit armed. It was impossible. "He's been here all week," Rachel said, confirming his worst fears. "Every single night." For the next hour, a horrifying pattern emerged. Marcus and Rachel jumped from camera to camera, night after night. The man appeared in dozens of clips. Sometimes he was a distant figure at the end of an aisle. Other times he was so close she could have felt his breath on her neck. Yet she never knew. The most chilling clip came from the break room. It was from Thursday night. The footage showed Rachel sitting alone, eating a sandwich and scrolling through her phone. But she wasn't alone. In the chair directly across the table sat the man, staring at her with a blank, hollow expression. The camera captured them both clear as day for her entire 30-minute break. "I was alone," Rachel whispered, her face pale as she watched the playback. "I remember that break. I would have seen him. I would have known he was there." But the footage was undeniable. The man had been sitting right in front of her, and she had no idea. This was beyond any criminal activity Marcus had ever dealt with. The man's ability to appear and disappear, his silent, close proximity stalking, it defied all logic. "We need to call the police," Marcus said, finally breaking the stunned silence. But Rachel wasn't done. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice barely audible. "The footage from when my keys went missing." Earlier in her shift, Rachel had been restocking cereal in aisle 9. She'd left the aisle around 9:52 p.m. Hours later, at 3:14 a.m., she'd returned to that same aisle. The security camera showed her stopping dead in her tracks. There, sitting perfectly centered on a box of cereal, were her car keys. Keys that had been in her pocket. Marcus rewound the footage. Aisle 9 was empty for the entire 5-hour gap. Absolutely no one entered or exited. There was no blind spot. Yet the keys appeared on that shelf as if out of thin air. "How?" Marcus started, but he had no words. It was like the man was a ghost, a phantom who could manipulate the physical world without being seen. For the next 3 hours, Marcus combed through every second of footage from Sunday night. He charted 17 different appearances of the man, all near Rachel. But there was never any footage of him moving between these locations. He would just materialize in one spot, stand motionless, and then vanish, only to reappear in a completely different part of the store moments later. It was as if he could teleport. By 2 p.m., Detective Carmen Rodriguez arrived. A seasoned expert in stalking cases, she listened patiently as Marcus laid out the impossible evidence. He showed her the compilation of clips, each one more disturbing than the last. Detective Rodriguez watched the entire thing without a word, her professional composure slowly giving way to visible concern. "This is one of the most disturbing stalking cases I've ever seen," she admitted. "The access he has, the way he gets this close, it's extremely dangerous." Rachel asked the question on everyone's mind. "Can you identify him?" Rodriguez sighed. "It's almost like he knows where the cameras are. His face is always turned or in shadow. It's deliberate." She promised to take the footage for analysis, to run facial recognition, to enhance the images. But for now, they had no suspect. No face, no name, just a ghost on the screen. "What am I supposed to do?" Rachel asked, her voice cracking. "I can't go back there, not knowing he's waiting for me." The detective had no easy answers. The store was a crime scene, but the perpetrator was a phantom. The investigation had begun, but they were hunting a man who seemed to obey no physical laws, a silent watcher who could be anywhere, at any time. Thank you so much for watching. This case raises so many questions about what we see and what we don't. If you found this story as chilling as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Stay safe out there. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story that starts like a typical workplace thriller, but spirals into something far more chilling, blurring the lines between reality and the supernatural. Let's get into it. The story begins with Rachel, an overnight stalker at a large retail store, and her manager, Marcus. For the past week, Rachel has been stalked by a terrifying figure, a tall, gaunt man with long, dark hair and hollow eyes. He appears in the aisles, watches her from a distance, and seems to move with an unsettling, unnatural stillness. The final straw came last night when the man appeared in the reflections of a wall of TVs. But when Rachel spun around, the aisle behind her was completely empty. Terrified, she called Marcus, who, along with two other employees, Jerome and Denise, swept the store, but found nothing. The next morning, a sleep-deprived and frightened Rachel meets with Marcus and a police detective named Rodriguez. They review the security footage from the past week, and their worst fears are confirmed. The man is there, clear as day, in clip after clip. He's seen standing just feet behind Rachel as she works, completely oblivious. In another clip, he sits directly across from her in the break room while she eats her lunch, staring silently. The footage is so disturbing that Marcus immediately puts Rachel on day shifts, refusing to let her work in the building alone at night until the situation is resolved. Detective Rodriguez is equally concerned. She warns Rachel that this stalker has already crossed major boundaries. She advises her not to be alone and to stay with her brother until they can identify the man. After Rodriguez leaves with a copy of the security footage, Marcus sits with Rachel, trying to process what they've seen. He admits he's never witnessed anything like it. The way the man moves, or more accurately, doesn't move, it's just not normal. Rachel voices her deepest fear. "Marcus, I don't think this is a normal stalker. I think something else is going on, something worse." Marcus, though deeply unsettled himself by the ghostly way the man appeared and disappeared on camera, tries to remain rational. He suggests they wait for the police to investigate, hoping for a logical explanation they just aren't seeing. But as Rachel leaves, a cold dread settles over him. He can shake the feeling that what they saw on those cameras wasn't just a simple case of stalking. It was something far stranger and much more terrifying. That evening, Marcus receives a frantic call from Detective Rodriguez. Her voice is tight with frustration and confusion. "Mr. Webb," she says, "the footage you gave me, are you certain these are the correct files?" Marcus confirms he pulled them directly from the system. "Why?" he asks. The detective's voice drops to a near whisper. "Because I'm looking at them now and there's a big problem. Mr. Webb, there's no man in any of these videos. The only person I see is Rachel Torres working alone." Marcus feels the floor drop out from under him. "That's impossible," he insists. "We both watched the footage this morning. He was there clear as day." But Rodriguez is adamant. She's looking at the exact timestamp he noted in his report, 1:27 a.m., camera 7. All she sees is Rachel working by herself. No one else is in the frame. Panicked, Marcus hangs up and immediately pulls up the original files on the security system. He navigates to the same clip. He watches Rachel push her cart and stock the shelves. He waits for the man to appear behind her. But he never does. The man with the hollow eyes is gone. Not just hidden or out of frame, he is completely absent from the footage as if he had never been there at all. With trembling hands, Marcus checks another clip, the one from the break room. Rachel is there, eating her sandwich, but the chair across from her is empty. The man who sat there staring has vanished. He pulls up every single clip where they had seen the stalker. In every video, the man is gone. All that remains is footage of Rachel working completely alone in the vast empty store. Marcus immediately calls Rachel. "He's gone," he says, his voice strained. "The man in the videos, he's not there anymore. I'm looking at the same footage we watched this morning and he's completely disappeared from every frame." Rachel is silent for a moment. Then her voice, laced with rising panic, comes through the phone. "That's not possible," she whispers. "But we both saw him," she insists. "Jerome and Denise too. I described him to them last night when they did the sweep. They saw him, didn't they?" A new wave of cold dread washes over Marcus. He tells Rachel he'll call them and immediately dials Jerome. The older man, groggy from being woken up, remembers Rachel being spooked and doing a sweep of the store. But when Marcus asks him to recall Rachel's description of the man, Jerome pauses. "I don't remember her describing anyone," he says. "She just said she thought someone was in the store. We looked, didn't find anything. Figured she'd just seen some shadows and got nervous." Marcus presses. "She didn't tell you about a tall man with long dark hair? Torn clothes?" Jerome's answer is definitive. "No, man. Nothing like that." Marcus hangs up, his heart pounding, and calls Denise. He gets the exact same story. She remembers Rachel being scared, but has no memory of her describing a specific person. It's as if reality itself is being rewritten. The man is being erased not just from the video files, but from the memories of everyone who was involved, except for Marcus and Rachel. They are the only two who remember the terrifying figure with perfect clarity. But how do you prove something that no longer exists? How do you fight an entity that can edit the past? Marcus pulls up one final chilling clip. It's from the aisle where Rachel had mysteriously found her lost keys. He watches the footage from that night. He sees Rachel walk into the aisle, her face contorting in terror as she reaches for the shelf. But in this new version of the video, her hands close around nothing. She lifts her empty palms to her face, staring at them with that same horrified expression. Yet Marcus knows her keys had been returned. He saw them. They were real. But according to the camera, they were never there. Marcus shuts down the system and sits alone in the dark security office, his mind reeling. He's a man who deals in concrete evidence, theft, trespassing, things you can prove and document. But this defies every rule of logic and reality he has ever known. He and Rachel are trapped, the only two people who remember the truth. The watcher wasn't just a stalker who disappeared from the cameras. He was a phantom being erased from existence itself, taking all evidence and memory of his presence with him. And as Marcus sits in the crushing silence, he is faced with a terrifying realization. How do you fight something that can rewrite reality with its very absence? And that's where the story leaves us, on a cliffhanger that sends shivers down your spine. The idea of a threat that can not only harm you, but also erase any proof of its existence, is truly next-level horror. What do you guys think? Is it a ghost, a glitch in reality, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe. For 22 years, Detective Carmen Rodriguez had seen the darkest corners of human obsession: stalking, domestic violence. She'd navigated the twisted patterns of predators who wore masks of normalcy. But nothing, in all her years on the force, had prepared her for the case of Rachel Torres and the vanishing stalker. It started like any other Tuesday. Carmen was in the tech lab with Officer David Chen, their digital forensics whiz. For 6 hours, he'd been dissecting the security footage from the local Walmart. The videos were spread across 3 massive monitors, each frame under intense scrutiny. "There's no evidence of tampering," David finally said, rubbing his exhausted eyes. "I've checked the metadata, looked for digital artifacts, signs of editing. Nothing. These files are clean. They haven't been altered since they were recorded." "But that's impossible," Carmen shot back, though the word was starting to lose its meaning. "David, yesterday morning, the security manager, Marcus Webb, watched these exact videos. He saw a man. He described him in detail, noted timestamps, made a full report. And now, you're telling me that same footage shows nothing?" "I believe you," David said, choosing his words carefully. "But from a technical standpoint, these files show no sign of being edited between Sunday night and now. Whatever happened, it wasn't a digital manipulation." Carmen leaned back, a headache pounding against her temples. "Play the electronic section footage again. The 1:27 a.m. timestamp." David complied. On the screen, Rachel Torres appeared, a young woman pushing a cart, stocking shelves in the dead of night. She was completely alone. The footage was boring, mundane, except it wasn't. Because Marcus Webb had sworn that in this exact clip, a man was standing 15 feet behind Rachel. He described him as tall, painfully thin, with long dark hair and torn clothes. He'd been so certain, his incident report was practically a portrait. Carmen had that report right in front of her, and it was like a script from an alternate reality. "What about the other witnesses?" David asked. "Her co-workers? The ones who helped search the store?" "That's where it gets even stranger," Carmen said, opening her notebook. "I interviewed Jerome Patterson and Denise Walsh yesterday. They both remember Rachel being terrified. They remember searching the store, but neither of them remembers her describing the man. They claim she just said she thought someone was in the store, but gave no physical description at all." And Rachel's version? She insists she described him in detail. The hair, the clothes, his behavior, everything, but their memories are blank. David frowned, his gaze lost in the monitors. So we have a security manager and a victim who both claim to have seen video evidence of a stalker, but the evidence is now gone. And we have co-workers who remember an incident, but not the critical details the victim swears she gave them. Detective, and I don't mean to overstep here, but have you considered that Ms. Torres might be experiencing some kind of psychological episode? The stress, the isolation of night shifts? I considered it, Carmen cut in. But Marcus Webb saw the same thing she did. He's a 7-year security veteran with no history of mental health issues, no reason to lie. And Rachel passed a psych eval yesterday. She's scared, she's exhausted, but she's not delusional. Then what's the alternative? David asked, his voice laced with frustration. Because from here, we have video evidence that contradicts multiple witness statements and no technical explanation for how it's possible. Carmen didn't have an answer. The one forming in the back of her mind was impossible. It defied every law of nature she knew. But it was the only thing that fit. Something was erasing itself, not just from cameras, but from memories, from reality itself. And that something had been stalking Rachel Torres. Just then, her phone rang. It was Marcus Webb, his voice tight with panic. Detective Rodriguez, we have a situation. Rachel just called me. She says he's back. A chill shot down Carmen's spine. What do you mean he's back? She's at her brother's house. She looked out the window and saw a man standing in the yard watching the house. She says it's the same man from the store. I'm on my way, Carmen said, grabbing her keys. Tell her to lock everything and stay away from the windows. I'll be there in 10. She made it in 8, siren wailing. Rachel's brother, Eric, was standing nervously in the driveway of his quiet suburban home. Eric Torres? Carmen called out. I'm Detective Rodriguez. Where's your sister? Inside, he said, his face a mirror of the fear she'd seen in Rachel's. She's terrified. Says the guy from the store is here, that he followed her. But detective, I've been out here for 15 minutes. I haven't seen anyone. Carmen did a quick sweep of the property. The yard was open, bordered by a fence, a few trees, some bushes, but no obvious hiding spots. Show me where Rachel saw him. Eric led her to the side of the house. She was at the kitchen window. She said he was standing right there by that oak tree, just staring. Carmen examined the ground. It was damp from an early morning rain. If someone had been standing there, there should have been footprints, but the grass was undisturbed. Not a single blade was out of place. Inside, Rachel sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cold mug of coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Tell me what you saw, Carmen said gently. It was him, Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. The same man. I came in here to make coffee, looked out the window, and there he was, by the oak tree. Same torn clothes, same stringy hair. Just staring at the house, staring at me. How long was he there? I don't know. I saw him and I screamed for Eric. By the time we came back, maybe 30 seconds later, he was gone. Did Eric see him? Carmen asked. Rachel's face crumpled. No, and I know what that means. I know how it sounds. But detective, I saw him, as clearly as I'm seeing you. He's following me. Carmen glanced at Eric, who stood helplessly in the doorway. Has Rachel been acting strangely? Seeing things? No, Eric said firmly. She's been scared, yeah, but she's not crazy. Rachel's the most level-headed person I know. If she says she saw something, I believe her. Carmen appreciated the loyalty, but belief wasn't evidence. Rachel, she began, her tone soft but firm. I need you to think carefully. Is there any possibility that the stress is causing you to see things that aren't there? Rachel met her gaze, her eyes full of a desperate certainty. I've thought about that, believe me, because the alternative is so much worse. But detective, Marcus saw him too. In the videos, we both saw him. We described him the exact same way. Are we both having the same delusion? It was a powerful point. Shared delusions were rare, typically happening between people in close, codependent relationships. Marcus and Rachel barely knew each other. "I need to show you something," Carmen said, pulling out her tablet. She queued up the Walmart footage. "Watch these clips. Tell me what you see." She played the video from the electronics section, then the break room. Rachel's confusion grew with every second. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice cracking. "He should be there. He was standing right behind me by that display case. And in the break room, oh God, he was sitting in that chair right across from me. The chair is empty." "He's not in any of the footage anymore," Carmen said quietly. "Whatever you and Marcus saw yesterday, it's gone." Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she stared at the screen. "But he was there. I saw him. Marcus saw him. How can he just disappear?" "I don't know," Carmen admitted. "But I believe you. I believe something happened. I just don't know what it was or how to prove it ever existed." Her phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. It was 2 sentences. "Found something. You need to see this." "I have to go," Carmen said, standing abruptly. "Stay here with your brother. Lock the doors. If you see anything at all, you call me immediately." Back at the station, David was hunched over his computer, his expression grim. "What did you find?" Carmen asked, her heart pounding. "I started thinking about what you said," David began. "About memories changing. So I went back through old case files looking for anything similar. And I found something. From 2019. He pulled up a scanned document on his monitor. It was a police report. The header read, "Incident Report, Walmart Bridgewater, Stalking Complaint." Carmen leaned in, her eyes scanning the details, and a cold dread washed over her as she read the name of the reporting officer, the description of the events, and the name of the victim. The case had been dismissed due to a lack of evidence and the victim's unstable testimony. But the details were identical. The tall, thin man, the torn clothes, the feeling of being watched, the evidence that vanished. It had happened before. Thanks so much for watching. If you're intrigued by this mystery, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what happens next. See you in the next one. Have you ever felt like you were being watched while working a late shift? That prickling sensation on the back of your neck? For Rachel Torres, a nursing student working overnight at a Bridgewater Walmart, that feeling became a terrifying reality. It started with a man. Tall, thin, with long dark hair and torn clothes. He'd appear at the end of her aisle, just watching her with a vacant expression. But every time she looked away and looked back, he was gone. Her co-worker, Marcus, a security guard, saw him too. He spotted the strange man on the security cameras, a ghostly figure moving through the aisles. But when he went to find him, there was no one there. The creepiest part? When they replayed the tapes, the man had vanished from the footage. It was like he was never there at all. Rachel's colleagues, who had initially been concerned, soon couldn't even remember her describing the man. It was as if their memories were being erased. This is where Detective Carmen Rodriguez steps in. She's heard stories like this before. She digs into the archives and finds a case from 6 years prior. Another woman, Patricia Clements, who worked at the same Walmart, reported the exact same stalker. The same description, the same disappearing act. The police back then found no evidence, no witnesses, and closed the case, suggesting Patricia needed psychological help. Carmen felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't a coincidence. Carmen tracks down the original investigating officer, a retired detective named Mike Torres. He remembers the case vividly. He tells Carmen, "The woman was genuinely terrified, but we couldn't find any evidence to support her claims." Looking back, it was strange. I interviewed her multiple times, and each time she described the stalker in perfect detail. But by the third interview, her coworkers couldn't remember her ever describing him, just like they'd forgotten what she'd told them. When Carmen tells him she has an identical case, Mike's voice drops. "Then we failed her," he says. "And Carmen, if that's true, you need to be very careful, because whatever it is, it doesn't want to be caught. With the help of her tech-savvy partner, David, Carmen finds Patricia Clements now living in Oregon under a new name. Patricia's voice is thick with emotion when Carmen calls. "I've been waiting for this call for 6 years," she says. "I knew someone else would see him eventually." Patricia's story mirrors Rachel's almost perfectly. The man appearing during her shifts, the silent watching, the way he moved like a ghost, and the utter lack of evidence. But Patricia reveals a chilling final detail. The night she decided to flee, he wasn't just in the store. "He followed me home," she whispers. "I saw him standing in my backyard at midnight." She called 911, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. No footprints, no sign he was ever there. That was when she ran, leaving her life behind. She tells Carmen that once she left that town, she never saw him again. It's as if the entity is tied to that specific Walmart. Carmen now faces an impossible situation. How do you stop a stalker who might not be human? A being that can erase itself from video evidence and even from people's memories? She realizes she can't arrest a ghost, but she can create a record that can't be erased. She interviews Rachel and Marcus again and again, documenting every single detail, creating a paper trail of their experiences before their memories can fade further. As she works, the evidence continues to vanish. Security clips that once showed the man now show Rachel working alone. Her co-workers' recollections become hazy and uncertain. Just 5 days after the investigation began, Rachel makes a decision. She calls Carmen and tells her she's quitting her job and moving to Colorado. She can't live with the constant fear. It's a victory, but it feels like a defeat for Carmen. She can't stop the entity, only advise its victims to run. "Do you believe me?" Rachel asks, her voice trembling. "About what I saw?" Carmen doesn't hesitate. "Yes, I believe you saw something real, something that defies explanation." Carmen closes the case, but not in the usual way. She writes her final report, detailing both victims' stories, the disappearing evidence, and the impossible pattern. In the case status section, she writes, "Unresolved, entity unknown." She adds a final note. Pattern suggests phenomenon is location-specific, possibly tied to Walmart Bridgewater. Recommend warning for future employees working overnight shifts. She knows the report will likely be buried in a file cabinet, dismissed as fantasy, but it will be there. A warning for the next time, because Carmen is certain there will be a next time. The watcher in aisle 9 hasn't been stopped. He's just faded back into the shadows, waiting. Weeks later, Carmen drives past the Bridgewater Walmart late at night. She sees the new overnight crew, young people stocking shelves under the bright fluorescent lights, completely unaware of the shadow that might be watching them. She thinks about going in, about warning them. But what could she say that wouldn't make her sound crazy? Instead, she drives on, leaving the watcher to his domain. The case is closed, but for Rachel, now living states away, the nightmares continue. She escaped the store, but she'll forever be haunted by the memory of those hollow eyes watching her from the shadows. The watcher in aisle 9 remains, an unexplained presence in a small-town store, waiting for his next victim to notice him. What do you think this entity is? A ghost? A glitch in reality? A shared delusion brought on by the strange solitude of overnight shifts? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving into mysteries that defy explanation, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the shadows. Thanks for watching.